Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's Lunar Module episode, we continue talking to E4TT Lunar Composition Lab Call for Scores winner Devon, who we spoke to in June 2024. Would you like to tell us anything about the piece that you submitted and that we chose in the Call for Scores?
So my piece, What I Know About Living, I wrote it about, I think, in the beginning of 2023. The text that I used was a poem by Andrea Gibson called Nutritionist. I found this poem when I was around, I think when I was, before I turned 13. It was a while ago.
Wow.
And I found it through this YouTube channel called like TED Ed that does little animations and often includes poems. And when I first saw it, I was really drawn to the animation style, and the poem was really beautiful. And I remember thinking that Andrew Gibson's delivery was so powerful and like rhythmic. But then I was like, oh, that's great, and then I moved on. And then a couple of years ago, I kept thinking about it. I'm not, as a composer and it's someone who wants to set texts, there's like a strong connection with poetry. So, well, not for everyone, but it's a huge place for people to get text to set for music. But for me, since I'm not a huge, since I love poetry, but I'm kind of looking at it from the outside without. I know that no one needs expertise to appreciate poetry, but I think it's very obvious that I lack that expertise. I haven't.
Wait, you're very articulate, but you don't feel yourself to be a wordsmith. Is that how you would say it?
I think so, yeah. I struggle a lot with being vulnerable enough to say the words or deciding.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand that. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Oh, no worries. And so throughout the years, I wasn't like a voracious reader of poetry. So this poem really stuck with me as one of like the couple poems that I've really thought about. And I was 12 then, and throughout the years during the pandemic and then afterwards, my family went through a really rough time just with like, me and my brother, we were going to new school. There were like some like family health issues that made it really difficult for us.
Sorry about that.
And yeah, thank you. It was a really weird time for me, and then I emerged from that really understanding a lot of this poem that I didn't understand before. Like I still saw the moving performance by the poet, because it's also like a spoken word poem, but I also just really got each of those words, and I really felt like it was just really for me now. I'm not in a possessive way, but just like I really resonated with it. And so when I had this opportunity to write a piece, I started writing with this text because I think at its core that the text really describes like a lot of difficulties that one might have. But my favorite, I think the lines that impacted me the strongest were at the end. Kind of like, God, the poem is so beautiful. There's just a lot that I couldn't fit into the text of my piece, but kind of just like, stay here with me. And if the only thing we have is each other, that's enough. That's plenty. And I think it really touched me. And kind of along that vein that I mentioned of not writing just for the world, but just for myself, I started writing this, just writing what I heard and kind of seeing where it took me. And this is where I've ended up so far, and I'd really love to continue to expand the piece, but it's a piece that's really stemmed from a personal place.
Yeah, and you're not the only composer who has said to me they wrote music, they started writing music, and they continue to write music because nobody was writing what they wanted to hear.
Yeah,
I think that's a very genuine motivation. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure that there's like so much out there that describes these kind of feelings, because as I've been discovering more music, there's just so many just gems of people's people's feelings, or even if it's not just straight up from an emotional place, just works that are so crafted so carefully that it just evokes that same feeling. But
Mm-hmm.
I do get that. Like, even if it wasn't like, oh, there is nothing out there that fits this niche, it was like there's nothing that has my specific feelings towards this poem. I
Right.
honestly kind of think of it as a weird, very long-winded book report of the poem. Like, I read this poem and this is what I thought of it.
I love it. You know, they say that there's only 5 or 7 or something like that basic plots in the world, right?
That's true.
Right. But look at all the books that explore them all. So, yeah, nobody else is going to respond to the poem exactly the same as you did, and no one will experience and express that. And I guess if you put that into music in a way that's true to yourself, it will really resonate. And it resonated with us. We chose your piece. So,
I'm really
clearly,
glad it did.
yeah, clearly you're mining a vein that speaks to other people, but you're right. You write for yourself, and you hope that when you throw it out into the world, that the world enjoys it, but still, that's not the point. So I think that's actually a very nice way of describing it the way you did.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Your answers have been very kind of, I would say, mindful and thoughtful in a way that
Um,
was lovely to hear.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or tell us? Or I feel like we've
Oh,
covered a lot of ground.
I'm really, really looking forward to the next couple months and years. I think that there's going to be a lot that I'm going to be working on, a lot ahead for me, and what I'm going to try to do. So, I'd really love to continue writing and sharing, and also hearing from others and working with them.
That sounds exciting and wonderful.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm sorry
So,
that I don't have anything that's specific. Mostly, I'm just kind of like following my whims where they go, or uh, it's not super well planned. But I think that when I get there, I'll really enjoy it.
yeah, no, it sounds like you will. So, thank you so much for this wonderful interview.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest, Devon Lee, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button, and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to co-producer and audio engineer Stephanie M. Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.